Hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sonia Bowman, and I'm the Executive Director of the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. And today we have something extraordinarily special to share with you. I want to start out by introducing the people that will be part of this panel with me, and then we will launch into sharing our video, which is called Stronger Than the Silence. We will then have some time to have our panelists share their whys, talk about some resources, and we have saved time at the end of this webinar so that we have some Q&A because we suspect that there will be a lot of it that will come out of it. So if I could just quickly go around and introduce each of you, and then I will share some special thanks. Jeff Horowitz from Safe Project. If you want to give a quick hand raise, I'll give you an opportunity to do an introduction as well. Julia Flanagan, one of our stars of the video. Santiago Eidlet, Chris Lavallee, and Mike Dirksmeyer. Thank you for being with us. I'd also like to give a special thanks to the Turner Foundation and Safe Project for working with us on this to make this special video a reality. I also want to thank our special production company, which is Visual Production Partners. Jesse and Owen were instrumental in making this project so beautiful and a dream to work with. And of course, I need to thank the board of the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention, who always goes along with my quirky ideas and allows me to run with them and make some of this magic happen. I am so very appreciative of all of you. And of course, my incredible, incredible storytellers who shared so beautifully. I want to talk a little bit about how this came about, but before I do that, I want to share, as always, that this is a conversation about mental health and suicide prevention and addiction. So know that at any point during this conversation, if you feel like this becomes too heavy or you resonate too deeply with this video, you can always leave the webinar and come back and access the resources. They will be available on both the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention's website, as well as Safe Project's website. So how this came about. We know that there is power in shared stories, especially when you can listen to someone share that story and feel or see that your own struggles are not just your struggles, but in the struggles of someone else. We knew we wanted to share stories, but we also knew they needed to be the right stories and they needed to be told in the right way. We also knew that they needed to be raw. We knew that they needed to be honest, and we knew that they needed to be unscripted. We envisioned that these stories would be of truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and of growth, but most importantly, of hope. We never envisioned that these stories would be of true vulnerability like the ones that you're going to see. I have to say that even talking about it still gives me goosebumps. By speaking openly, these individuals are helping break the stigma and show that mental illness and addiction is not a personal failure. They are human challenges that many of us face, and recovery is absolutely within reach. Their willingness to share openly is an encouragement to others to have these conversations that don't normally happen on our job sites, to remind people that they are not alone, and to lift a culture and help it be towards one where seeking support is seen as a sign of strength and not of weakness. I need to again thank these participants, Julia, Santiago, Chris, and Mike. This would not be possible without you. Your power and your shared stories will save people's lives. And even if one person feels seen, understood, or motivated to reach out for help because of what you shared today, then you have had the courage and have become the catalyst to make change across our entire industry. Thank you again for being so very real. And without further ado, I am going to share those stories with you now.
Oh, I never told anybody. No, I never told anybody. I fought that alone. And one of the biggest reasons for Me being a peer was, I would have given anything for somebody to talk to that might have understood it or at least listened.
My story is not unique.
I don't know how much it relates to my alcoholism, but I lost my father at a very young age. I had a lot of social issues when I was in high school. I had trouble making friends, trouble fitting in. And once I discovered alcohol, all that anxiety went away. It's like all of a sudden I had a great way of making new friends. But that carried into construction. I got into the business, and I was a 19-year-old kid working with 50, 60-year-old guys who were rough people. And they drink after work. That's what they do. So my way of fitting in was hanging out with these guys and just doing what they do. I feel sick every day, physically sick. It's like, I can't eat. I can't do this. I can't do that. And like, all right, there's something wrong with me. It's like, do I have stomach cancer or something like that? Like, say nothing of the 2 pints of vodka I was drinking every day. That couldn't have been the problem. There's something else wrong with me.
Started on the Tappan Zee Bridge. And I blew hot into a breathalyzer. But that was like one of the first, like, really like, oh, there's something going on here. Basically, institution after institution, detox after detox, hospital stay after hospital stay. If I don't have the recovery, I don't have the job. If I can't stay sober, I'm just a liability.
Painkillers. After a while, the fake ones, the good ones, the real ones, it didn't matter. I had no money, I had no connections, I had no way to re-up, as it were. So I just went through the withdrawals.
Really, really sick. I was 23 with pancreatitis. Like, it was really dark. It was really dark.
I just opened my eyes one day and was like, what the hell is happening? I'm in the house, the gas is off, the lights is off, and I'm just messed up. I got no more drugs, and I have to go to work.
I would try to cut back, but I just kept on falling into the same routine. So my wife gave me the ultimatum, like, you need to do something about this now, or you need to get out of the house because I don't want this around our kids. And it hurt, of course, but I knew she was right. I had a great fear of losing my family. So I picked up the phone and I called and said, you guys have been talking about this since the day I got in, like, that you offer help for this type of stuff. Like, I need someone to put me in the right direction.
I often would think to myself what other people would think about a crane operator with a mental illness moving heavy pieces above their heads. Being able to guide them to where they need to go. I'm somebody that shares my own story. And because I share that story, that's the most powerful thing I can do.
If someone was struggling with the voice in their head saying, telling them that they're messed up and they're not good enough, I said, I would tell them to do what I did and reach out to me and talk to me. Because it's not true, right? Every day you spend in recovery is a better day than you spent your best day when you were using, when you were caught up in the grips. Bro, you good. Right where you at. Just don't use.
This woman who just, was just there being herself, sharing her story, who was brave enough to share her dirty stuff that made me feel like maybe mine wasn't so dirty, We can recover. We can be different, It's possible. It feels so impossible. And you just take some time because you're worthy of a good life,
A doctor, a psychologist, a therapist can all tell you something, but when I hear it from another addict who's living a life that I want to live, well, I believe him because he tells me a story, and it's a horrible story.
I think there's a little bit more recognition on self-care rather than mental health. Telling somebody you're going to take Friday off because you're taking a long weekend with the family, people understand that. They don't understand I'm taking Friday off because I just need Friday off.
Exercise become a big thing for me. It helps me a lot. Just doing sweating, doing hard stuff, choosing to do hard things.
I found this person, and I just did anything that he asked me to do. A piece of advice he gave me in the beginning was, you're not going to know what to do with yourself because you spent so much of your life drinking, and your life revolves around that right now. So you're going to have a lot of empty voids and not know what to do with them. Here's my suggestion. Find some weird stuff to do. Go get a pedicure. Go do plaster fun time with your kids. Just do stuff like that. It might feel weird and silly, but I guarantee you're going to find things that you actually enjoy. To this day, I still go get a pedicure once in a while.
I work out almost every day. Do some kind of variety of exercise, because when I choose to do hard things outside of work, everything that comes when I'm at work feels so much more manageable. I respect my body. I try to take care of it. I eat well. I pack my lunch. I'm big on packing lunch, big on working out. I like to lift heavy weight. It makes me feel strong, not just physically.
Well, I had to listen for once. I had to step out of my own head and take someone else's advice.
I've been a sheet metal worker since 1986. I've been peer-to-peer since 2020. So when you come to me and say, Santiago, I need some help, bro, I got you. I'm hugging you up and yo, let's do this.
How often do we see it and how often do we know it and we don't do anything about it? They see somebody that came out on the other end, and here I am, I never once in my life expected to be a business agent. Not once. I was a crane operator. I'm happy as a crane operator. But here I am as a business agent. So what I showed is, even though I went through a mental illness issue in my life, I got through it, I pushed through it, I did the work, and I was able to move up in my career. To show that I'm vulnerable, to be able to say, this happened to me. It wasn't fun, it wasn't exciting, it wasn't good.
Just because you can't help your family member or your loved one doesn't mean that there's not help for them. It goes vice versa. Just because one person can't hear you, or just because one person a person that you love isn't receiving your support, doesn't mean that it's not somewhere else.
If you could help somebody for a day, if you could do that for a day, you'd say, oh man, this guy's got it rough. And they'd be like, oh man, this guy's got it rough, right? You just understand people have problems. People have feelings just like you do.
Guys and gals of construction don't want to hear about our hard hats. We heard about it. We get it. We got to wear our hard hats. Let's have a real talk about it. We call each other brother and sister. You don't let a brother or sister, go to waste.
The tough guy attitude is very attractive from the outside looking in, especially someone new, someone younger. That's what you want. That's what's appealing about this job. But I'm not here to listen to your personal problems. We're here to work. It can't stay like that. It can't. We need to keep evolving. And I feel like it is.
So what gives me hope is people that are doing things with inside the industry.
I got to go back to that job, stand on my own 2 feet, a sober woman. Where there is breath, there is hope. I believe that I get to be free. I get to be free. I was so not free for so long.
The more we talk about it, the more it normalizes. The more it normalizes, the less the stigma.
It's all about branching out and trying something different. Stop doing the same thing you've been doing forever, because it's not going to change.
If you ask, people will help you. And there's a lot of people who've been trained to help just like me. So if you need help, reach out. That's what I always said.
And give that a second for everyone to take a deep breath. So now I'd like to take a minute and introduce I see lots of hands raised. If you have questions or want to share something, you can put those in the Q&A. You can also put those in the chat and we will be happy to answer them. I know that there are a lot of questions happening right now about how you can access this video and how you can share it out to your teams. I'm going to ask you just to hang on because I promise you I'm going to get to that answer. But before I do that, I would really like to take just a minute and ask each of our participants to share their why and why they agreed to be on this video and to share their story so beautifully, openly, and honestly. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Chris, and I'm going to let you go ahead and come off of mute and tell us why you agreed to do this.
Thanks, Sonia. Chris Wallaby, operating engineer out of New Jersey, local 825. My why for this really goes back to my own struggles that I had in the 90s. It was very rough. It was a tough time for me. And there wasn't much as far as help, if there was anything, whether it was reaching out to the resources we have today or even in our own benefits. As I grew, I started to notice people with issues. And I think that people that have gone through issues are more dialed into people with issues. So I began starting the process of becoming a peer and then started a peer program and did a decent amount of training through the time. And I kept leveling myself up. As I was leveling myself up, I saw the importance of sharing my own story. And my own story sharing, I was nervous as hell the first time I shared it. And I realized what an impact it had on the crowd that I shared it to. So, as it grew and as I became a peer and as I put it out there, it didn't grow right away. But here I am years later, and I see people coming forward and I see people asking for help. And what I do have to look at is people enjoying their lives, people moving on, people getting back to life, and that have been through some really horrible things, but we can survive. We can get past it. We can get through it. And when you do and you see it, there's probably no better feeling in the world.
Thank you, Chris. So it looks like the chat may not be working for some of you. Please feel free to use the Q&A. We will be checking it and answering that throughout the rest of the conversation. I want to move on to Mike now and ask him to share his why.
Thanks, Sonia. I appreciate the opportunity. My name is Mike Dirksmeyer. I'm a project superintendent for Turner in Boston. I'm also a recovering addict alcoholic of 5.5 years. I agreed to be a part of this because getting into the sober community was very difficult for me. I knew nothing about it or what I was getting into. And working in the construction industry, I was afraid to be the person to raise my hand. I was afraid of losing my job. I was afraid of losing my family. It took me a long time to get past that. And frankly, I got to the point of desperation where I really had no other options other than to ask for some help. And when I did that, I was blown away at how wonderful this community is and how supportive people are of each other. And as I mentioned in the video, I could talk to doctors, psychologists, all types of different people about what I was going through, and they would give me advice, but I wouldn't take it to heart. I only took it to heart and made changes when I would talk to another addict because I believed their story and I understood their pain and I could relate to it. So that affected me. And I saw how great life can be once you go through the mud that we walk through it to get where we are and the challenges that it faces. And I brought that to construction because unfortunately I had a coworker commit suicide on a project a few years back, and he was a friend, and that hurt me deeply. And I became extremely outspoken about raising your hand and asking for help. And more importantly, if you're a supervisor of people, start building a more personal relationship with the people that you work with. I think that's all I have at the moment, Sonia. I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
You're amazing. Thank you. And thank you for sharing. And thank you for being so honest about your journey. We truly appreciate it. Julia, you are up next, please.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? You can hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's Julia Flanagan. I'm an operating engineer. I'm a surveyor out of New York City, local 15D, proud member. I'm a very blessed woman. Oh my gosh. I watched that video. I'm so moved by all of your stories and just the beauty of how just this whole thing, and like I feel like there's a million reasons for my why, but there's been one thing. I'm in recovery myself. Just actually end of April was 9 years I've been kind of walking this path, and it's such a blessing. It's unbelievable. But one thing I've learned is like when I'm presented with an opportunity, or I meet someone who offers me to participate in something that is aligned with the way I'm trying to live my life, like to me, that's God. Like, here you go. Here's an opportunity to be where you're supposed to be, And so it felt so aligned because I'm sure I'm not alone in that. In the video, I think I mentioned a little bit about how I didn't know that I'd be able to go back to work, or at least at one point I did in the times that we've talked, Sonia. And I didn't know that because work doesn't necessarily set my soul on fire, but this stuff sets my soul on fire, because this stuff like this, awareness, people sharing, people being open is what saved my life, and it's other people's openness that allowed me to step into my own openness. And so, that's definitely some of my why. Another big part of it is that, I come from, my family's riddled with addiction, right? And my family's we're construction family, I know I'm not, what's usually a father-son is a father-daughter in our case. And I know that I'm not alone. If one thing I've learned on this journey is that I'm not alone. I'm not the only one, as much as I think I am sometimes. And if I had maybe heard something like that, it could have made a difference. And you never know. And I also know for myself that you never know when you might hear the thing that you need to hear, because I heard a lot of things and I kept, running amok. And then I heard the message I needed to hear that allowed me to step into a new way of life, and allow people to help me. And so you never know. And really everything I was looking for in the bottom of a bottle, the comfort, joy, belonging, all that stuff is what I found in recovery. So if there's, any little thing that someone might be able to connect with me on that think it might be possible for them too, that's my hope, and to let other people know. I'm getting I get all fired up about this stuff.
You're doing great.
Yeah. But, I was so wrapped up in guilt and shame. I had no freedom whatsoever. I was just I wanted to be inside my shell, in my little turtle shell. And I don't live that way anymore. I'm free today. And it's all because of, walking into this new life of recovery, and because other people put their hand out to me. So I just want my hand to be out to others today.
Thank you. And thank you for doing that. Last but not least, to the guy that made me laugh the most during all of this, Santiago.
Hi, everybody. My name is Santiago Hyde. I'm a sheet metal worker, local 28, New York City. And my why is because someone asked. Today, I can do things because people ask. If I have the ability to help or to participate, I'm going to do that. I'm in recovery. It's 8 years in April 11th. And the similarities between the stories that I heard about recovery and the stories that I heard about people wanting to commit suicide, which I am in that category also. And it just, everything bleeds together. Everything works together. There is no better way to live a life than on its own terms. And, 8 years ago, I was at absolute rock bottom. I was 55 years old. And I was like, how am I going to do this all over again? How is this going to work? I'm too old. I'm too tired. Oh my God, I had lost everything. And today, I have custody of my child. I pay my bills, which doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is a big deal for me in the way I live my life. And I want to share that it's possible. Have I gained everything that I've lost? No, but some things I don't need. I just need to be a participant in the world as a person, and I do that every day. I love the life I have, my little stinky car, my pain in the behind 19-year-old son who doesn't know what he's doing correctly half of the time, and being able to share my story, because My story has a similarity to everybody else's story, and I thank God and I'm grateful for the opportunity to share it with all of you guys. And I'm from New York. I'm sure you could tell by my accent, but it's just beautiful to be able to do this. And thanks for letting me.
Thank you. And thank you all. Please continue to put your questions into the Q&A. Participants, you can't see, probably you might be able to, what's in the Q&A, but there are some beautiful sentiments for each of you. Somebody wants to give you the biggest hug of all. I wish there was a huge hug emoji, some really beautiful sentiments. So clearly what we set out to do is happening, and you are touching people and touching people's lives. One of the questions that was in the Q&A was, is this being recorded? Yes, all of CIASP's webinars are being recorded, but we have taken this one step further. So simultaneously, as we are running this webinar, both CIASP's, or the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention, and we have the longest website ever, but it is preventconstructionsuicide.com, as well as Safe Project, have constructed landing pages on our website that will host this video series. So not only is this 10-minute video that you each have seen today on those websites, but there are smaller, we'll call them vignettes, of each one of their stories. So Mike has a story there, Julia has a story, Santiago and Chris each have individual stories that are in smaller bite-sized pieces. So they are between 90 seconds and 2 minutes long, so that if you just had the time to share one of them, you would be able to share just that story. Also on our landing page, and I know that Safe Project has mirrored that page as well, we have a resource guide for you to be able to print out and put on your job sites, and it is in both English and Spanish, access to this video series. So you can print them out. There is a QR code, and they are available for you to put around the job, because our hope is that while there are, I think, 180 people that joined this conversation today, that you are sharing this throughout your job sites, you're sharing this throughout your office. And if somebody feels like they need to hear these stories, they are accessible to them. But those stories are also downloadable on each of our websites, so that you can continue to share them out. They can share them with that QR code. There is also a companion guide to this video that talks about how to use it, how to talk about it, and what to do with it when you use it on your job sites, as well as then instructions on how do you, as the person who may need these resources, access resources and what they are. How do you, as a leader of a crew, access and what resources are available to you? And then how, as a company, are you able to use these resources also? As always, every resource from the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention is 100% free, and they are all labor agnostic. So anyone can use them on any job site in any space or place, and they are available to you to be able to use. I'm actually going to let Jeff speak a little bit about some of the very specific recovery resources that they have. I'll take a look at that Q&A and make sure that we spend plenty of time at the end answering those questions as well. So Jeff, go ahead and introduce yourself and take it away.
Thanks, Sonia, and thanks to the Turner Foundation. I think the most important people to thank today, you've already seen them, and they've gotten more hugs than I've seen for folks for a long period of time. But thanks to Julia, Mike, Chris, and Santiago for sharing their story. My name is Jeff Horwitz. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Safe Project. And Safe Project is a national nonprofit that's really focused on addiction, substance use, and the mental health challenges that lead to it. So we are proud partners to share all of the great work that this video has, and also to make sure that resources are available. We've been created as a nonprofit to bring people together instead of having thousands of resources out there when you need some help and you need to find something, really to bring all of the resources and the best resources together. So what I really want to encourage you to do is set up a plan in your head about whether or not substance use or mental health challenges affect you and the world around you. And I would tell you the answer is statistically, absolutely. And then second, make a plan on how can I deal with it? Now, when we look at this and when we take a look at this challenge, the truth is what we do know is this, and that it is a problem throughout our worlds, throughout our businesses, our workplaces, as well as in our schools where our kids are, as well as with our neighbors, as well as everywhere else in the world today. So first and foremost, you need to figure out how to get the best resources possible. And so what we have done at Safe Project is we have divisions that have divided themselves up, where we deal with one with colleges and universities, one that deals with the community as a whole, one that works with workplaces, and that's what built this relationship today, and also one that works with the active duty members, caregivers, family members, and the veterans. We know that all of the solutions in many ways are the same, but it's how you talk about the solutions and what you believe the risk is to prevent you from talking about those solutions, which have to be tailored and adapted to what your needs are. But what I would encourage you to do is take a look at it the way I generally do, and that is ask yourself questions. The first question is, what resources are out there for yourself? If you're in crisis, where can you go? What do you need to find? And whether you look to Sonia's webpage, the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention's webpage, or our webpage, which is simply safe, S-A-F-E, project.us, there is a landing page that mirrors this and will help you find your journey and find the path to help yourself. Now, there's a couple of resources that I think are very important. The first one is we all know about the 988 National Hotline for Suicide Prevention. But sometimes that's not the first crisis, and that's not the first moment that you might need some help. And so if you do need some help with resources, with finding housing, finding other alliance and other support, there is a local and state resources helpline that's out there, and it's the Find 211 helpline. Now, I could throw all the emails and all the paperwork and all of that out to you, but it will be lost in the end of this. So just simply go to our web pages and you can find those resources, whether it's Sonia's web page or whether it's our web page, and click those resources. If you're in a national crisis and you need to talk to the hotline, that's 988. If you're looking for support so that you don't get yourself in a terrible crisis, then go to 211 first, but don't hesitate to go to 988 if it gets to a crisis moment. Along the same lines, you'll see on our webpage, we have the National Alliance for Mental Health, and we have opportunities that you can talk to individuals there. If you're looking for substance use treatment, or you're looking for peer support to help you talk through that, or you're looking for some recovery housing to stay into, we have links on the Safe Project webpage which will help you find those that you can tailor those to your specific needs or to the specific crisis you're in, as well as you're trying to figure out who you should talk to or how do you talk to someone. How do you talk to a coworker or a family member or a friend? Those are all available on our website. That's the first question I always ask. The second question is, how can you help those on your job site? And if you're looking at how do you help folks on your job site, I think what we learned today is the most powerful any piece of this, in addition to the video, are the four voices that you heard today. Because those are the peers, those are the individuals that have experienced this journey and experienced the stigma that prevented them from speaking up, but it did actually speak up. And so what I think you need to do is find those vocal advocates that can be supportive of you on your work site. Talk to those vocal advocates and give them a comfort zone to find that. Now, how do you do that? I suspect you can find those folks if you are listening to your workforce, if you're talking to your workforce, and you're approaching the mental health side and the substance use side and your overall workforce side with compassion, with kindness and empathy, and that will come forth. We know that there is a significant amount of struggling in every workplace, but especially in the construction industry. So be open to that and be curious about that rather than confrontational or judgmental. The last thing I always ask is how can you as a company, and also this works on a work site, do better and help your team know that you are supportive of this? And what we do know is that the number one problem that we face is stigma. And stigma is simply saying we're creating a situation where it's not comfortable for people to speak up. But we do know that addiction has disease and genetic elements. We do know that mental health challenges need to find coping mechanisms, and we usually go to the easiest coping mechanism, the most comforting coping mechanism, and that sometimes gets us into trouble. So what we want you to do is find a way to overcome that stigma. If you want to use the Safe Project Stigma Awareness Campaign, please do. It's on there. It's our No Shame Pledge. And post that, share that, and use that, and spread the joy of that or anything else, any other stigma awareness campaign that says you're open to that discussion. When you don't do that, you create a barrier. But if you're willing to open up that barrier, people will be more willing to talk and discuss those things. And then there are many other things you can do on the job site, whether it's making sure naloxone is available on the job site, whether it's making sure people are trained in how to use naloxone. There's free training available on our website. We can also show you how to get naloxone. We also show you other resources that are out there. But most essential is to listen to these folks and the advocates that say these things. Take a look at the resource guide that Sonia and her team have created. Act and be curious and look for what you need. And if you don't find what you need, send us an email. We will create it together and make sure that we can help you all thrive instead of struggle through all of this. So, Sonia, thanks for having a Safe Project as a partner. We are proud and we couldn't be happier to be a part of this. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeff.
And Mike, Chris, Santiago, and Julia, thank you very much for sharing your story.
I could not have said it better. Thank you, Jeff. Just know that there are lots of resources. And just like Jeff said, I could rattle off all of them that are on our website, but your best bet is to go there and check them out. We have them categorized so that you can create mental health and addiction safety plans on your job sites so that you have a space and a place to be able to find those resources, list those resources, and post those resources. They are all available. Again, our website is preventconstructionsuicide.com. Because we have lots of comments and lots of questions, I do want to get to some of these questions because they seem like they are a little bit more complex. So I think the first one that I'm going to throw out to all of you, and I know it's not the first one in the list, but it's probably one that we can start with while I look for the others, is someone said, thank you so much for sharing your stories. How can this be implemented within a company? And how can I start something? So if you want to, I know, Chris, you've got some ideas on this. I think Santiago, Mike, and Julia probably all do as well. But Chris, why don't you open it up and then everyone else feel free to jump in as well.
Sure, thanks. That's a great question. It's something that I advocate for. You just have to start it. You have to stop talking and you have to start doing. You don't need a lot of in-depth training. What you need is things like the resources, know what the resources are, know what EAPs you may have, know what insurance might offer you, and that's a great start. When you start it, you will find people. You'll find people like Mike, Santiago, and Julia that'll come forward and they'll want to genuinely help, and it'll grow and it'll organically grow. So that's what I have. I'm always
That's great.
available to talk about it, one-on-one if you wanted to.
Absolutely. Mike, Santiago, or Julia, do you want to add anything to that? Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
So one of the first things that I had an issue with when I started being more involved was the way that we discussed this on job sites. We used to treat this as if it's a safety item, and we would run through our list of safety items in a large scale meeting with a project manager, project executive talking to 300 people about hard hats, glasses, and then we'll touch on mental health as if you're checking off a box. Our goal at the moment is to try and get this down onto a peer level. So you have a foreman talking to his workers, you have a project manager working with their superintendents, and it can go both ways. But really the goal is to try and get real conversation rather than just checking off boxes, and really trying to get to know the people that you work with on a more personal level so they'll feel comfortable talking to you.
I like that, Mike. Thank you. Anyone else? I will add one thing, and this is something that came from one of our board members who speaks about this often. And what he says is that everyone has safety as a core value in their company, but your head is connected to your body. And so not just safety, but mental health has to be part of that core value. It can't be a priority, like Mike just said, because priorities change and priorities are often revenue generated or revenue driven. And if we make this conversation as much as a piece of conversation as we make any other safety issue, then it becomes part of who we are and not what we do. And so that's the one thing that I would add to that piece. So thank you for answering that, all of you. The next question that we have says, many thanks to all of you. This person is an electrician, a counselor, and a stigma researcher here. Can you share your thoughts? What hurdles have you faced in your industry to reach this stage? And this platform to spread the message and story, and how do you overcome some of that, and where do you still stumble? So I guess the question is, what hurdles have you overcome, and do you still stumble? Julia, you want to take this one?
Yeah, I'll start it. It's a great question. And the first thing that comes to mind for me is obstacles, I guess, for me, obstacles is basically being told no. And yeah, but no, and and not letting that stop me. And then, continuing to connect with people, like-minded people like you guys, and eventually like things aligning, and not giving up. It's like all about stick-to-itiveness and tenacity, not giving up on something that's important to you, I think that's the most I could probably say about that is, just not getting discouraged by being told no, or, just keep going.
Perfect.
Pretty much for me.
Santiago, Chris, Mike, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the hurdles that we face that I face are basically the stigmatism that people put on being an addict, having suicidal ideations, and I spend the most amount of time talking to people about how it's not that strange. As a construction worker, the cyclical nature of the business, the click nature of the business, all of these other things that put you off your feet, like get you out of sorts, that those things compound, and you try to take care of it with drugs, alcohol, or just ideations. People would be better off if I wasn't here, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not true. And that is the hurdle that I repeatedly face, but I go against these hurdles, and I go through the day saying the amount of energy I put into using every day is the amount of energy I put into carrying the message. And it usually works. I can be very persuasive.
You can indeed. Anyone else want to share a little bit here?
Yeah, real quick, I would say buy-in to Mike's phrase, just checking a box isn't enough. You need buy-in from the leadership. Leadership needs to show that they care. You get through these hurdles, and honestly, statistics don't lie. And we talk about people in recovery. There's over 35 million people throughout the United States in recovery. There's a lot more people with functional addiction and functional mental health issues. These people are in your workforce. They're there. So the more you bring light of it, the better they are. And if you really went into the numbers of hours lost due to these problems, you'd be very shocked. So, look into that kind of stuff. And they're very real numbers. Numbers that none of us could really make up because they're that crazy. But I think that's where it is, to really just lay it out. And here's the proof.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, Sonia,
So,
can I just
yep.
throw in really quickly?
Of
And you're not
course.
alone. The answer on all of this is you're not alone. And if you're not comfortable, there's CIASP, or there's Safe Project, to reach out and also to work with your leadership and have conversations with your leadership. That's what we're here for, is to make sure that this works. The construction industry isn't the only one that's dealing with this problem. We are all dealing with this problem. And if we can be open-minded, great. But if your leadership can't be open-minded, or your leadership wants to figure out how to do stuff, this is what we bring. We bring a wealth of that experience, and we can help you get through those hurdles. But stigma is hitting us, and the answer of "it's not my problem" is not really a right answer. So that's what we'll help you address.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jeff. Also, as a reminder, we have on our website a free mental health screening tool. It has a double layer of anonymity attached to it. So you go to our webpage, we don't collect any identifying information. And then you can go to Connected Minds webpage where you can walk through a 5-minute assessment. And at the end of that assessment, it'll say what you're feeling is normal. What you're feeling seems like you might be struggling. Please contact your EAP or your health insurance provider, or you're in crisis and you should contact 988. The great thing about that, though, is at the very end of that assessment, you can print it out and take it to a doctor, and they have a QR code at the bottom there that can help speed your diagnostic process. It's a fantastic tool that's not just available to the construction industry, but anyone can use it to help move along that process. So please know that's there as well. If you're just not sure or you want to have a little bit of an opportunity to control the process for yourself. One of the other questions that came out was, and this one was specifically directed to Julia, but I also know that some of you have faced this as well, so feel free to chime in at the end. But how did you share these learning experiences with your family members in addiction?
Ooh, ooh, I love this. Thank you, whoever asked that question. And thank you for asking me a question that makes me feel special. How did I share these experiences with my family? So it was very difficult actually at first for me to, I could barely understand anything myself in the beginning of my journey here. You know, I could barely get my head around anything, let alone what was actually happening. But I knew something was happening. And they knew, I mean, they knew that I had issues. You know, there was no question about that. It was pretty obvious. I think, and actually, I know it was very obvious. But I just stood in the truth of what was happening, and I did the best that I could to communicate with them as I was in any moment. It was a challenge to stand up to my family and tell them that I needed to go live in this sober house. You know, they were like, "What the hell is that?" Excuse my French. Like, they were like, nobody knows what that is. Like, I didn't even know what that was, but I saw other guys doing it, and I was like, well, maybe I should go do that, you know. And but it was definitely difficult. I think for me, I had to separate myself from the family a little bit, like just like love from a distance, so that I could get on my own 2 feet, and so that I could continue to listen to these people who had walked this road before, because it was so different than where I come from. My family, beautiful people. It was just this recovery thing was not part of not in our wheelhouse, you know. And I really just had done the best that I could at any time. You know, it was a lot of vulnerability, tons of uncomfortable conversations. And I continue to ask for help. And like today, I still need to work on those relationships and communicating with them, because family is probably the most difficult. I know I'm not alone there either. You know, it's like, it really can be challenging, but I've just little thing at a time, you know. And if I'm really like nervous about it, if that's your question, like if it's around being nervous around communicating with your family, like I run it by one person that, you know, like the people Mike had talked about so many times, like another alcoholic addict in my life, or someone who knows what's going on related to what I have going on, and just kind of running it by them, getting their little feedback. And then it kind of cuts it in half, you know, the nervousness around it or the worry I have around it. And I do the best I can with where I'm at, you know. I don't know about anybody else, but I didn't have language around much. I couldn't express myself much for a long time. I was very stunted in that area. So, you know.
Anyone else want to add to that one? Awesome thing. Yeah, go ahead, Mike. You don't have to raise your hand. Just jump in.
Okay. Ironically, one of the things that I had to deal with my family was I don't come from a family of alcoholics, like admitted alcoholics anyways. So a big struggle for me was when I told my family what was going on, they made excuses for me. They tried to explain away what I was dealing with. They told me that I had triggers. I'm not an alcoholic. I had to make some hard decisions for myself based on what I was hearing from people that were in the same situation, rather than listening to people who were giving me the easy way out. I've been doing that myself for years.
Wow. Thank you. That's very poignant. Absolutely. That happens. Go ahead, Santiago.
I didn't have to tell anybody. Everybody knew.
Mm.
That's how my life was. I didn't have to say anything. They were just happy when I went away. They were like, thank God, we don't got to worry about you no more. So.
I think you said something to me at one point when we were recording like that. I think it was like something like, everybody knows, and you don't have to pretend that they don't because you've been living this life for so long.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes being an addict can be really insidious. Like you can just keep working and doing your thing, and and you'll be hit with little periods of where everything falls apart, but you quickly gather your stuff up and you move on. I was at a point where it was so much wreckage. I found myself like, if it's like you have a yard and you dig a hole in the yard, the whole yard was full of holes. So everywhere I went, I fell in a hole. So at that point, I just needed help. And thank God that my union had people available. And I ended up doing what the person did for me for my union. So
Thank you. So we do have two listeners, one from the UK, so thanks for joining us, and one from Canada, both asking about resources. There are some incredible resources in the UK. The Lighthouse Foundation is one of them there. Construction Sports is another one that has some really great resources. You can also look to Get Construction Talking. They have some great resources. Same applies to our Canadian question. Your resources, all of our resources are available both in the US, Canada, and anywhere else. But also for our Canadian friends listening, we have worked very closely with IHSA. They are putting together some really strong construction resources also that are specific to Canada. So definitely take a look at those also. I'm going to keep going. I know we are coming close to time, but we have some really great questions. Lots of people saying some amazing things. Thanking you for ending the stigma, for sharing your stories. Okay, here's a good one. What are the unique struggles in construction that create this dilemma? So any one of you I know can answer this question. I'm not sure, maybe Mike, you want to start, or Chris, or any of you.
I mean, the most obvious one for me was, am I going to lose my job? Like, unfortunately, in construction, we're in an atmosphere where work comes and goes, there's ups and downs, and regardless of all the protections in place, people can and will find a way to let you go because they don't like the color of your shoes. It's sad, but it's true. But a part of this that I learned later on was that there are protections in place nowadays that I was not aware of. And as I look at it now, I talk to people and I say, if you're struggling with a problem and you don't say anything about it, people are going to make assumptions on their own. If you raise your hand and ask for help, then there are protections in place and there are people that will look out for you.
Awesome. Thank you. Very well said. Anyone else want to add to that?
I always think it's being part of something, whether it's your crew or your company or your union or whatever it may be. Sometimes you just don't fit in with certain things they want to do, whether that be most of the time after work or on a weekend or something like that. It's a very misunderstood and not taken well kind of place to be in, whether you're in recovery and can't go to the bar for a cocktail on a Friday, or you're taking some medication that you can't drink with. It's very hard to be around people. I don't think from the addiction side, it's more hard for people to understand it as far as, why, what's the big deal? It's just one. But there's people that are out there that can't have just one. They can't be around the environment, you know. So it's important to pay attention to that, especially when we look at things like, company gatherings and Christmas parties and things like that, People want to be included, but sometimes find it best to just stay away so they don't get themselves in trouble.
Great point. Anyone else want to share on that one? So I think we have time for one last question, and that question has to do with, and Julia, you obviously can counter some of this, but I'd like to throw this out to Chris, Mike, and Santiago. But one of the listeners said, do you think this is a masculinity issue?
100%.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't sit there and say anything. You're in this business, you're weak. You're just weak. You're not. If I had a nickel for everybody that just close to me that told me, why can't I just shake all this off? or can I get over it? If I had a nickel for that, I'd be a millionaire. And, having a family within the construction business, it was, of course, there was worry and there was concern, but you hear it about other people. So, that's going to be about me, and I don't want it to be about me. Yeah.
So how
it's,
do we create spaces for people to speak more openly?
gotta
That's the
speak
other
yourself.
side of the question.
Got to speak yourself. Like I said, when I started speaking about it, I was scared to death. But, if it, just like this get together, if it helps one person, it's all worth it.
Thank you. Santiago.
I want to preface this by saying I'm as masculine as they come. I'm as manly man as the manly man can get. And I don't know if you can see my shirt, but I love flowers and I wear flowers on just about everything I do. So it's all about what are you willing to accept? People want help. People want to talk about what's going on with them. And the job is a place where we pretend a lot. Like I pretend I'm good. I pretend I'm feeling okay. Just give people the space. Pull somebody to the side. If you see them struggling, if you see them not performing like themselves, pull them to the side and say, hey, man, just noticing that you're not doing so good today. If you need to talk, I'm here. Catch me at lunchtime. Catch me during a break. Catch me after work. And that's where the manliness ends, when you really need help, right? Because if I'm drowning and you throw a straw my way, I'm grabbing that straw. Like whatever I can to stay afloat.
Awesome. Thank you.
I'll say one thing. I'll just say
Go
one
ahead,
quick
Julia.
thing.
Yep.
In terms of the conversation not happening enough, or whatever the question where that's rooted from, I wouldn't say that it's a masculinity issue. I would say that it's a pride and ego issue, and pride and ego can come from anybody, women, men or women, So
Thank you all. Thank you all for sharing. We are over time. This will be available on our website. It'll probably take a day to get the recording of this specific webinar up there. So please feel free to look for that. Please look for our resources. Again, thank you to the Turner Foundation, to Visual Production Partners, to CIASP, to Safe Project, but most importantly, thank you, Mike, Chris, Santiago, and Julia. You will have changed the construction industry by sharing your story, and we could not be more proud that you chose us to share it with. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Have a great day, everyone, and be safe. Take care of yourselves and the people you care about.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate the opportunity.
thank you so much. Thank you everyone for being here.